Movie rundown here. Today I'm going to show a 2012 American supernatural horror film called The Possession. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In what seems like a perfectly normal and quiet suburban home, an old woman stands horrified and trembling in front of a wooden box, the box laid sinisterly on her mantelpiece, the Hebrew witching seemingly murmuring to her. The radio plays in the background as she holds a hammer in one of her fists before she can strike. An unseen force makes her drop the hammer. Her eyes roll to the back of her head and her body convulses as she drops down to the floor. Her legs run violently as she spins around on the carpet. The force pulls her body up, breaking her spine. She's thrown against the wall and collapses back to the ground, her head smashing into a glass table nearby. Hearing the commotion, her son rushes into the house and gasps at the horror in front of him. Meanwhile, basketball coach Clyde is running late to pick up his daughters, Hannah and Emily, for the weekend. He meets his ex-wife Stephanie and her boyfriend Brett in his former home. After an awkward goodbye, Clyde takes his daughters to his new house, in a new and upcoming neighbourhood. The next morning, Clyde and his daughter stop by a yard sale as he takes a phone call. Emily spots the wooden box, while her father pays for the stuff. Emily takes her box and spots a heavily bandaged person from the window. It's the old lady who tried to destroy the box, but she has survived. The old lady spots Emily from her window and her eyes widen in horror. She thrashes about and screams until her caretaker closes the window. Terrified, Emily runs back to her father. Later that night, Emily is woken up by a voice coming from the box. She takes the box from her desk and accidentally opens it. She explores the contents inside and slips on a ring that she finds. The next morning, Emily hangs out with Hannah in the garage. As she practices for her dance performance, she tells her sister that she feels funny and not herself. Hannah tells her to just stop caring so much about it. This doesn't comfort Emily at all. At the end of the weekend, Clyde takes his daughters back to their mom. The next weekend, Clyde has his daughters over again. As they enter the house, Emily stops in the hallway and hears sounds coming from the kitchen. The girls call their father and he orders them to go outside. Before Clyde could confront the intruder, a dark figure darts through the doggy door, leaving behind their trashed fridge. Later that night, Emily is woken up by the voice again. When Clyde calls her for breakfast, Emily starts acting weird. He looks into her eyes and knows that something isn't right. Clyde confronts her, but she stabs a fork into his hand. The haunting continues into the night as Hannah discovers her sister's room swarming with moths. In the morning, Clyde calls the exterminator. He takes the girls back to their mom and asks her if she's noticed anything weird lately with Emily. Stephanie reassures him that it's probably because of the divorce. When Clyde calls to check up on his daughter, Emily tells him to not touch the box no matter what. The following weekend, the girls are back again at the house. Emily stares in horror at the bathroom mirror as she sees the decay spreading through her finger where the ring sits. She starts gagging and sees two fingers crawling their way out of her mouth. She gasps, feeling spooked. At school, Emily doesn't do any better. She has a complete meltdown and starts striking one of her classmates. Clyde and Stephanie are called to the principal's office and are informed about Emily's increasingly alarming behaviour. The box is left at school with Emily's teacher. She begins hearing voices coming from the box. As she tries to open it, her eyes start bleeding and an unseen force throws her around the classroom before finally throwing her out of the window. With school cancelled, Clyde spends his morning with Emily. He questions Emily's relationship with the box. Emily then tells him that the box is important to her and that's where her woman friend lives. Her friend tells her that she's special. Clyde then asks if he could meet her, but Emily says it's impossible because nobody can see her friend, even her. Later that day, Clyde takes the box from school and throws it into one of the dumpsters. When he returns home, he finds Emily to be hysterical, demanding to know where the box is. She yells spiteful things at Clyde and begins to smack herself. Hannah witnesses this from the hallway, horrified and thinking that her father had beaten her sister. Emily runs outside and finds the box where her father had left it. As she opens it, a swarm of moths then enters Emily's body as she collapses on the ground. Clyde finds her daughter's body and brings it back to his house, only to find Stephanie and Hannah talking to the police. Stephanie then files a temporary restraining order against her ex-husband. Looking for answers, Clyde takes the box to a university professor. The professor then tells him that it's a Dybbuk box probably made by a Jewish community and originating from Poland in the 1920s. The Dybbuk box is believed to contain evil spirits and must never be opened. Clyde now believes that an evil spirit has possessed his daughter. He obtains a Tanakh or Hebrew Bible and visits his daughters despite the restraining order. He finds Emily in her room and reads her one of the passages from the Bible. An invisible force sends the Bible flying across the room. Clyde demands the spirit to leave his daughter's body, but he is stopped by a frantic Stephanie and is ordered to go home or else she will call the police. Desperate for help, Clyde travels to Brooklyn to meet with a rabbi named Sudok. Sudok takes him to his father, who then tells Clyde about the Dybbuk. The Dybbuk is looking for a living host to take over its body. The only way to stop it is to command it back into the box by its name. Meanwhile, Stephanie finds Emily in a rabbit state, ransacking their fridge like a wild animal. Emily goes berserk and starts destroying their dishes. Ruth then convinces Stephanie to take Emily to the hospital. The next morning, Emily drops on the ground and begins having a seizure. Stephanie calls an ambulance and breaks down in tears, not knowing what to do with their daughter. Meanwhile, Clyde is on the way home from Brooklyn with Sudok. They learn that the evil spirit's name is Ibiza, which means taker of children. After an MRI scan that goes terrifyingly wrong, Clyde finally catches up with his family at the hospital. Not wanting to waste more time, Clyde leads his family and Sudok into an empty room where they begin the exorcism. They light 7 candles and each place a token of themselves inside the box. Emily starts going berserk as Sudok and Clyde start reciting passages from the Bible. She trashes her arms and legs and then slowly stops. She screams and goes into a rampage. She grabs Sadok's head, her unnatural strength pinning him down to the floor. Clyde lifts her off the rabbi and she pushes him off. Emily's eyes have rolled to the back of her head, her veins popping out and her lips turning blue. She screams obscenities at Clyde before running off. He follows her into the morgue and finds her in one corner. A voice comes out from Emily's body asking for her father. As Clyde walks towards her, she disappears, drops a black liquid splatter on Clyde's hand. When he looks up, Emily jumps on him from above, strangling him on the floor with her inhuman strength. As Clyde begs the spirit to take him instead, the rest of the group finally catches up with Clyde and Emily. They find him hugging his daughter on the floor. Sudok feels unsure and asks where the Dybbuk is. He calls out its name until a gust of wind pins Clyde to the wall. The spirit has now transferred to Clyde. As the family cries out in horror, Sudok continues the ritual. The gust of wind is now moving about the room. A swarm of moths is coming out from Clyde's body and then finally a rotting hand erupts from his mouth. The box opens near Clyde as the lights trickle on and off. The hand makes its way out of Clyde's mouth and then finally an infant-like figure wet decaying, with holes for eyes, and a gum-like mouth crawls on the floor towards the box. The box closes and the wind disappears. Clyde's family walks towards him and envelopes him in a hug. They return to Stephanie's house soon after to recover. Clyde calls Sudok while he's in his car. He's now in possession of the box. Clyde asks him what he's going to do with it. Sudok replies that he's taking it to his father, and they will hide it somewhere that no one can get to it again. Clyde hangs up. As Sudok crosses the intersection out of nowhere, a truck hits his car in a fatal crash. Sudok sits upside down in his vehicle. Bleeding as onlookers call for an ambulance. The box had gotten out of the car, laying several feet away awaiting its new owner. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like. It really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.